Good morning. It is Wednesday, June the 8th. I'm Shane Seeley, and this is the CBC Morning Report. We do apologize for the delayed start this morning, but let's get into it. Barbadian consumers continue to feel the ripple effects of the war in Ukraine and are now paying more than they did a few weeks ago for food and other commodities. Here on the Morning Report, we're getting an update from the Barbados Agricultural Society as it has been monitoring some of these increases across the board. The CEO, James Paul, joins me to talk about the movement in prices and some other issues. James, good to have you back on the Morning Report.
Hello, good morning. And good morning to your listeners also too.
Talk to us about what you're seeing over the last 2 to 4 weeks. It's been just over a month now, around that, since we've seen that first increase in feed prices as a result of the war in Ukraine. Of course, that has had a knock-on effect on so many other things. And then there is the fuel price increases that we've been registering as well at the pump. Talk to me about how that has been affecting what you've been seeing on those supermarket shelves and, of course, coming from a lot of your producers in the BAS.
Well, certainly it is putting a lot of pressure on producers because at the end of it, you have to find some way to recalibrate. And it's very difficult to do so. And for instance, in the past, you had a level of certainty in terms of the stability of prices. What we are seeing today is that because of the type of movements that are happening and the frequency in which they are happening, it means then that you cannot plan properly. For instance, when you think that you have started out something, it, it, things happen to eat into your bottom line. So there's an element of uncertainty prevailing in the environment that actually is putting a lot of pressure on producers. And of course, it is a question to how do they survive in that type of environment? Because if for instance next week there is going to be a further increase in the price of oil, what it does is that it undermines profitability. And when I say that, remember too that what it means is that people will not be able to pay their bills. There are people in the agricultural sector, for instance, who are producers. They will not be able to pay their bills because more of the money that they earn will be going towards, say, paying your gas bill, paying your electricity bill. These are the hard facts of life. So where, for instance, you would have had income to say spend on, your family or whatever, it is reduced because if you don't pay your gas bill, you don't pay your electricity bill, of course, the operation that you are actually in charge of cannot run anymore. And this is the hard related facts that I believe consumers need to understand in the face of this. So it's going to be, there will be of necessity price adjustments if people are going to be able to survive in the current environment.
And we've been seeing the pricing adjustments going to the market on a weekend where you probably get the most affordable prices for goods and services there. You've seen even the egg and poultry producers take up their prices. I know eggs in some cases, a 30 crate cost $2 more. It sounds like a bit, but this is a bigger increase than we would have seen in recent time. Talk to us about those spikes that you're seeing as far as food is concerned.
But I mean, there are. It is not. It is expected because people will panic. For instance, when you are seeing your price of inputs in some cases, say as much as in some cases 50% increase in the price of inputs, it will cost that. And I think maybe producers are trying to work out where they should be. But again, remember, there's uncertainty in the environment. This is not a time where in the past that you were able to plan that, for instance, for the next 10 months or 12 months, as the case may be, that prices will remain at a certain level. Even, for instance, right now, we're watching, say, the price of corn on the international market. They are still at the levels above where they were in, say, 2018, 2019. It's just way above that level. And again, you have to plan in line with that. You don't know whether or not it will go up or go down. And depending on the events that are happening in the Ukraine, or any other part of the world where there's conflict, and that is a major area, that will happen because in that situation, you have the situation where a person who is a seller of a commodity that he's accustomed to, having a certain price. He cannot tell consumers that next week or two or a month from now, the price will be the same because it seems as if the price changes on each order that they get. So, for instance, the place an imported good where you have a lot of goods that are being imported. It seems as if we are hearing that suppliers are saying to overseas suppliers are saying to local suppliers here they can't guarantee that that price will hold for not further, say 6, 7, in fact for a month. And then of course it goes back to the whole question of soup specials. If you look at the supermarkets right now, for instance, you're hardly seeing specials on commodities that you're accustomed to seeing specials on because you cannot run a special on something that, in a sense, you have no guarantee on the price. You just cannot. So this is the real difficulty when it comes to management in any commercial enterprise or even in terms of an agricultural producer who, for instance, when it comes to fertilizers, fertilizers is something that, of course, you need. And if you're importing that fertilizer, each shipment is seen as if there will be a difference. And the other inputs, the herbicides that you have to use, there will be a difference. It's even in terms of eggs, for instance, that we spoke to just now. The egg crates that you use, you have now what some people are trying to do in the business is to try to, for instance, buy as large quantity as they can afford at this time. But when at the same time your cash flows are not as strong as you're accustomed to, because right now the other things such as the electricity that has gone up, the gas that you're using, when other things have gone up at the same time from your other local people, it means then those increased amounts that you have to shell out in other areas means therefore that you have less cash at your disposal to put into buying, say, items at more favorable prices, which because instead of buying 100 units of a commodity, in order to get that special price, you have to buy 200 units. So you just don't have the cash in order to invest in those 200 units so that you can offer your buyers better prices.
There have been some hiccups in the supply chain, which also could affect what supermarkets have on their shelves. And I'm pretty sure that you've also been seeing some empty spaces in some cases where the suppliers are not being able to provide the supermarkets or some of the commercial entities with what they usually have. Can we expect to see more of this in the weeks and months ahead? And what does this mean in terms of how people do their shopping? Do you now have to try to do all of it and probably shop for a longer period of time, even on short spending power?
It all depends. It all depends on what's happening out there. If we get a resolution in terms of what's happening in Ukraine, maybe things will ease. But even then, the process of adjustment takes time. For instance, when we went through COVID, a lot of the supply chains were disrupted, and it take time. Supply chains take time to build back up. It is not as simple as you think. That it's not like turning on or turning off a tap. It takes time to build back up. So again, um, it could get worse, could get better, but it seems as if most of the persons who are knowledgeable about the industry in terms of supply chains and what's happening seem to think that things can get more difficult for us here. So it's something I think that we should be very wary about. And I believe that we have, though, as consumers, have got to try to look at other ways in terms of tackling the issue and maybe look inwards in terms
Yeah.
of trying to deal with some issues that we are seeing.
And before you go, speaking about looking inwards, you were a big part, the BAS, a big part of AgroFest 2022. A new time and some new linkages forged, especially as we build that bridge with Guyana. Talk about some of the lessons learned and what can we expect coming out of AgroFest that we can use to try to buffer some of these challenges that we are seeing in terms of our food and general commodities.
But, one of the things we should be focusing on right now is production. And in fact, when you look at all of the other initiatives, all of them are really take second place to the need to increase our level of agricultural production of certain staples that we have in Barbados. For instance, we talk a lot about wheat. I remember around COVID in 2021, we were able, for instance, to increase our production of, say, sweet potatoes. That is something I think that we need to push. As a matter of fact, it should be a strategic thing that maybe government might need to request the plantations and other large producers to increase the acreages of staple crops such as sweet potatoes, yams, although in the case of yams, you have an issue in terms of the amount of planting material available. But certainly, when it comes to certain crops, I think that we need to review it very carefully and increase it because at least in that way, we might be able to minimize the extent to which that we have to depend on, say, overseas sources for certain items of food. The problem in doing this, and I think that is great, is that a lot of our agricultural sector is not integrated into the business sector in many ways, and the lack
Mm-hmm.
of backward linkage between our, say, retailers and our agriculturalists, our farmers, is one of the big issues that we need to tackle at this point in time. How do we ensure that when a farmer produces a commodity, that it will be bought? That is the central issue that we need to tackle. And maybe we need to look at some strategic things that we can do. And that is where, of course, AgroFest tries to do that because if you look at the makeup of the exhibitors at AgroFest, what we have are people across the wide range of commercial activities in Barbados.
Indeed.
So you have people at the retail end, the manufacturing end, and you have the producers. So the thing is really by bringing those people together, what ideas can we generate to try to ensure that we develop those backward linkages that are required at this time?
Well, James, it's always good talking to you. Hopefully next time we can drill in more in the poultry sector to see what prices are looking like there. I know you have to talk to some of your producers, but until next time, you be safe, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate
Good
your
morning to
time.
you.
Yeah, appreciate your time,
Thank you.
James. James Paul is the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, spending some time with us here on the Morning Report. We'll take a break here. We got COVID-19 updates coming your way, and of course, we'll tell you about what's happening in Ukraine. COVID-19 has claimed two more Barbadian lives. Two women ages 72 and 76 passed away as the result of the virus yesterday. They were both unvaccinated. That means the number of deaths from the virus here has now reached 465. Meanwhile, a total of 104 people were diagnosed COVID-19 positive. 43 males and 61 females from the 393 tests conducted on Monday by the Best dos Santos Public Health Laboratory. The number of people in isolation facilities was 44, while 1,371 people were in home isolation. Barbados' healthcare system has once again been bolstered by the arrival of dozens of medical professionals from Cuba. The 70 specialists, doctors, nurses, and lab technicians touched down at the Grantley Adams International Airport last evening, where they were greeted by local and Cuban officials. Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Sonia Brown, says the local healthcare system is in need of specialized personnel, particularly since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. She says Barbados is therefore eternally grateful to the Cuban government.
Right now we are short of specialized nurses and to some extent doctors, and we welcome today at least the last number was supposed to be about 70 people from Cuba with various specialties. We have 4 doctors, ICU trained, lab specialists 4, and the others comprise nurses with different specialties, pediatrics, NICU, SICU, MICU training. So we're grateful for that. It's needed in Barbados, at least for now, till we can build out our own supply. But for the next few years, probably we will indeed need the help from other sources.
Now, the last medical contingent, made up of 126 members, departed the island last week. The Cuban ambassador, Sergio Pastrana, says the number of personnel and types of specialties on loan will differ depending on Barbados' needs. As the two countries celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations, Ambassador Pastrana says they're exploring further cooperation in areas other than health and sports.
There are a number of issues that we have been discussing in different aspects of the economy and research, and of course there are evident interests in things like pharmaceuticals or, let's say, agriculture. There are many, so we're open to increase cooperation because we believe that between the Caribbean countries we must strengthen this capability and to face the different challenges of the present world that are cornering us from every.
Let's talk about the situation in the Ukraine now, and reports of heavy shelling near another city suggest that Russia is preparing for a renewed effort on the northern axis, as progress made by the invading forces last month had stalled over the last week. Let's take a look at what is happening there.
There are reports of street-by-street battles in the city of Severodonetsk and the town of Lysychansk. Moscow says it seized residential areas in Severodonetsk and it's now pushing into nearby industrial zones. But Ukrainian officials say their troops are holding their positions. They're the only 2 places in the Luhansk region holding out against the Russian assault. Moscow's controlled Popasna, about 30 kilometers to the south for several weeks, is now pushing outward, trying to take more areas around it. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia may have the numbers, but his side has every chance of fighting back. Russia's reportedly deployed extra troops in the region. Kyiv's forces are using battle tanks to carry out quick hit-and-run attacks as part of their counter-offensive. Well, joining us now from Donbass region is Ukrainian MP Sviatoslav Yurash. Good to have you with us, sir, on Al Jazeera. Tell us what it is like there.
It's hell on earth. The reality is the fighting is fierce. The Russians are not advancing in their infantry. They are attacking with their artillery day in, day out. They have a great deal of shells, and every time they try to advance in their infantry, they get repulsed. We are holding strong, but we need the world to support us in this unfair fight in which they are killing people in their thousands. And the reality is
We will continue to monitor the situation there. Let's go over to Pearson now to hear what he has for you on this Wednesday edition of Morning Barbados. Pearson, I have to remind myself it's Wednesday, of course, the bank holiday was the Monday, so we're in the middle of the week already.
Yeah, already I feel like it's Thursday. But good morning, Shane. Good morning, everyone. Coming up at 6:30 today, had he been alive, he would have celebrated his 95th birthday today. We're speaking of that outstanding Barbadian, George Lamming. We'll be joined by Barbados' first poet laureate, Esther Phillips, as she shares excerpts from some of his publications and also reminisce about the man. In our Talking with HR about HR with HERMAB today, we want to look at admin personnel versus human resource management. What's the difference? We'll share the difference with you as we hear from those professionals as well. And it's Heritage Month. We'll look at what we are doing this month to mark Heritage Month and project for the next 50 years when those experts join us as well. All that and a whole lot more when you join me at 6:30 for Morning Barbados. It's back to you, Shane.
Thank you, Pearson, and a lot more here happening on the morning report. Of course, we'll tell you a bit about that preview for the West Indies versus Pakistan. That happens today in short order. The details to that story and more coming up right here on the morning report. Let's look at sports now, as the West Indies and Pakistan are all set to play in the first one-day international in Multan in just over 30 minutes' time. The three ODIs are part of the Super League cycle, and both sides are very eager to secure crucial points to directly qualify for the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup in 2023. Just yesterday, it was announced that the Windies all-rounder Keemo Paul had been called up for the series thanks to his performance in the recent first-class tournament, where he was the leading fast bowler and second highest wicket taker overall. He ended the 5 matches with 20 wickets at an average of 22.8 runs per wicket. Paul had the best figures of 6 for 50 and was also among the leading all-rounders with 169 runs, including a high score of 73. The West Indies arrived in Multan on Monday after the impressive 3-0 series win in the Netherlands, and captain Nicholas Pooran was in good spirits.
From my side, I believe that we have started something really good in the Netherlands. Obviously, winning 3-0 there. In terms of confidence, the guys are confident. I'm not expecting, anything from this series here. I believe that the guys, we are working as a unit here. We're trying to do as much right things as possible, trying to do what is required of us for the team to be successful. I don't want to say that we're going to win the series or we're going to lose the series. I believe that the game is played on a day, and the team that does more right things for longer period of times will win. Obviously, tomorrow is a game, and I don't want to say anything. I don't want to jinx anything, but I think we're heading in a really good direction. The guys are in a really good headspace, and tune in tomorrow and let's hope for the best.
And Pooran says, despite the change in weather with some really hot conditions there, 45 degrees Celsius, the temperature is averaging during the day. The regional boys have adjusted to that. And the first ODI, West Indies versus Pakistan at Multan, it will begin shortly. Starts at 7 a.m. So you can look up for that action. We'll try to give you some updates as it goes ahead. Let's take a look at the weather now. The temperature, 26.8 degrees Celsius, is fair with slight haze. It's feeling like about that same temperature right now. The relative humidity is around 80%. The barometric pressure is 13.7 millibars, and those winds are coming out of the east at 28 kilometers per hour. There will be a high tide this morning at 10 after 10. The low will be in the afternoon at 25 minutes to 5. The seas are smooth to moderate in open water. Swells are between 1 and 2 meters and increasing. Today in Barbados, we'll have a mix of sunshine and clouds with a few brief scattered light showers. And tonight, we'll have a mix of clear skies and clouds with a few brief scattered light showers. And here's the international weather forecast. And that's it for the Wednesday, June 8th edition of the CBC Morning Report. I'm Shane Seeley. I'll see you at 7 with headline news. Up next is Pearson Bowen with Mornin Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, 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 morning.
Indeed, good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of June, 2022. I am Pearson Bowen, welcoming all of you here on the island and whatever space you fill today. Good morning indeed to you. Thank you for joining us on our YouTube stream and our Facebook streams as well. Remember to like our Facebook page, Morning Barbados. Always good to hear from you, to read your comments and to engage with each other as well. Thank you so much for being a community. Today, also, we'll be looking at World Oceans Day and how we use our ocean or blue spaces, our blue economy. We'll be taking a look at that. We'll also be meeting representatives from the St. Michael Parish Independence Committee. They have a launch of a big project that will benefit the community. What is that project? We'll hear from them. Also, don't forget, in our talk about HR with Hermab, we'll be taking a look at personnel administration and HR management. There's a difference. What's the difference? And what's new and their approach as HR practitioners to how we do business today. But let's start with celebrating an outstanding Barbadian who was born on this day in 1927, June the 8th, 1927. Time has taken him everywhere, part of which was a journey into Trinidad and Tobago, later on into the UK, and at one stage having worked with the BBC. But one of our memories we want to start with sharing with you today is one that happened in 1960 when on the iconic program Monitor, he had a chance to sit and talk a little bit about the importance of West Indian literature, and let's take a look at that now.
George Lamming, 33 years old, the life of a big city suits his temperament, argumentative, engrossed by ideas. He's at home in London and enjoys the company of what he calls the Hampstead think-talkers. Lamming came to England from Barbados 10 years ago, an England which a character in one of his books describes like this.
In England, nobody notices anybody else. You pass me in the street or sit next to me in the train as if I come from a next planet. Nobody asks questions and nobody gives answers. You see this the minute you put foot in London. The way the house is built was that people don't have nothing to do with one another. You can live and die in your own room, and people next door never say boo to you, no matter how long you inhabit that place. It ain't like home as you think. I tell you, you only got to see how their house is built to see what I mean. The walls look hard. They're nasty. At the top, you see all the time smoke coming out a chimney, and only now and then, when a curtain moves back, you tell yourself, somebody living there. And what all you hear going on for the first time is what it means to live in your own room, alone, without knowing a single soul in any of the other 100. The terror of not knowing and of not even daring to call upon a single soul among the 100 who surround him. I think that is the initial experience of the West Indian arriving. However tough he is, for the first time in his whole experience, he is alone. Yeah. But one of the things that one must establish is that this world of isolation is not only different, it's strange. Because what he realizes is that this attitude towards him is an attitude which the English themselves share towards each other. Yes. This business.
That's an extract from a TV series then called Monitor in 1960, and to hear him in his own voice speak of his experience tells a lot about the depth of the man. We're joined this morning too by Barbados' first poet laureate, Esther Phillips, to share her memories and also to share some of what she's written about the man too, or about her own experience and how he's inspired her to do what she does. Esther, good morning to you.
Good morning, Chris, and thank you so much for having me.
It's been a while. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, as always.
Let's talk a little bit about George Lamming, this outstanding Barbadian man. What's your memory and what about his work impacts you most?
The thing that impacts me most about George's work is his consistency. The fact that what he needs and he practices that. What I also love about the man is that he's very complex. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I'm thinking I could read this because we can read George's work if we want to find out what he thought about, how he felt, what were his particular political views. All that is documented. What I think could be of interest is a personal perspective from someone who knew him quite well, who spent several years with him. And like I said, that complexity comes out in this poem, my perception of George. And it will also give glimpses into the kind of thinking, the man he was. This is called You, Another Country. You are yourself another country, your own prime meridian. It's easy, you said. Here's the key. So I took courage and entered. Thick forests, borders, pathways turning and turning on themselves. I tried to track you where your light seemed brightest, your monument of thought. Meteors clashed there, time shifted, black holes spewed out destinies of a new world. I searched for calmer spaces. Somewhere inside these tangled forests, there must be a tract where sunlight falls. Soft rain nurtures green shoots, and the sound of the wind as it rises is the call of a heart. Not every journey ends at heart ease. Another metal forges some pathways. An axis underlies each turning, and friction lends its radiance to the shadowy places. The seeker learns to shape her own heart's harbor. But you are not all forest. You're unexpected springs where lines still intersect. And all along your landscape, meteor trails lay claim to the imagination, that sovereign state where kindred souls thrive best. You are a country worthy of habitation. And let me say, Pearson, that interview that we were just watching, that clip there, that's so much of who George was. You can feel the passion, you can feel the commitment, you can feel the sincerity of purpose. And I mentioned in this poem the fact that he saw the destinies of the new world. Because that's what he's saying even there from England. When he lived there, he was so much aware of the extent to which the immigrant is cut off. In fact, he describes the whole place almost as a place that is pretty hostile. But in which the immigrant, the colonial person, the West Indian going there is cut off from the rest of society. No one notices them. No one even seems to know that they are alive. But it is in that place that George really comes to an understanding of what it meant for, how necessary it was for West Indian people to come together, to retain and fight for their particular culture or way of life. And here again, I mentioned the word sovereignty, and he was very much into the idea, the concept of the sovereignty of the imagination, because that's what the poem speaks about, that there is a link between the speaker in the poem and George, and that is the imagination. And earlier up, I talked about meteors clashing there, where his intellect was. And that's the impression you got about George, that he was a man of, not impression, that was what we knew of George, a man of tremendous, staggering, and which is something he maintained for practically most of his years until the later years, which I could talk about a bit later.
It was around that time too that he would have written In the Castle of My Skin, and you know that in itself became quite a novel that everyone had to read right through time and generation. What do you think for him it meant to have written In the Castle of My Skin, and what do you think we who have read the pages should have gained from it?
The fact that George wrote this in his 20s, I mean, that in itself is a stroke of genius, because that maturity of thought, the ability to step back from his life there in Carrington's Village, and to see it, to analyze it in that cold, critical, objective eye. The plantation structures, the colonial outreach that was actually a stranglehold of the people in the village. The fact that he's able to capture so much of the lives of the people and to explore the ways of exploitation. For example, how Pa is unable to own the land because, of course, land is denied the people, and he has to move off that land, the only home he has ever known. The factor of religion there that was also used pretty much as misused as a means of control, which might very well have gone on to influence his own stance in Marxism. But that is an amazing accomplishment, and much of it is still relevant because we haven't quite rid ourselves of the status of the plantation society. That's not gone completely, and certainly his the the fact that he said, education was so necessary, educating the people. But again, what type of education? And he looked at the politics. He looked at the socioeconomic structures. He looked at the personal lives of the people. And to me, that's a massive achievement. That book, by the way, has been translated now into practically every language that there is on the earth. And for good reason, because so many people across continents, across the world, could see, especially in the especially colonized areas, could see the relevance and the common concerns of that are expressed in that book.
I don't want to be cliche, but it truly is timeless. It has transcended time and space. But he operated at a time and a space with many contemporaries who are also literary greats. We've had V.S. Naipaul, Derek Walcott, Kamau Brathwaite, Samuel Sullivan, C.L.R. James. So a number of these young West Indian men were writing from their truth. How did you think his work, George Lamming's work, compared, if it's fair to do so, with the writings of those gentlemen as well?
George Lamming had, in that same interview that you watched just now, he himself makes that observation that it was almost impossible for those men at his time, those writers, not to have certain commonalities. They were all moving from they were all very conscious of having lived in colonial islands. They understood the need for their migration, that you were coming from a place that was hardly recognized, and the kind of battles that you were going to have to fight, the struggle to have to face. As a matter of fact, in Pleasures of Exile, he refers semi-humorously, but you could see the seriousness under that, to having had a conversation with this white man. And, they're talking almost as equals, they're sharing. I think they're at the train station. And as the man walks away, he looks back and he says, "Oh, by the way, who do you belong to?" Now, that is an extremely telling thing, because in this man's mind, he still sees this black man as having had to belong to some part of empire. But the point, though, is that all those men that you mentioned just now, all those writers, who, by the way, occurred in BIM. Let me put a plug in here for the magazine BIM. All of them were writing. If you look back at their work, they're all having the same struggles, whether expressed in fiction for the most part, but all speaking of the conflict and the struggle of identity. Who am I? As a Caribbean man, as a black man, where is my place in the world? What can I as a writer do, especially when you have this established canon in England and where they were all migrating to? Where do we fit? How brave can I be in challenging these structures, which is what he does in Water with Berries. But George, I think, what I admire so much about this man is that you couldn't sink him. You couldn't bring enough opposing forces to move George from where he wanted to be, or what he believed in coming home. In his book Conversations, he makes that point. He's making the point that he has his right in the world, and the important thing is that you could not touch this thing called the sovereignty of the imagination. That was something that was a right of all people across all time, races, whatever. And this is what I do not want, as you have said, I do not want to make comparisons, but from my own personal viewpoint, I would certainly say that there was a kind of a conviction and a forthrightness that always were underlying George's work, because those themes, in whatever form they came, they never changed. The right of the black man, of the West Indian, of the Caribbean person, to have his place in the world or her place in the world, and to challenge political systems where necessary, to examine and criticize and analyze economic structures that kept people oppressed, and never to give up the fight. And another thing too was, what was very important, Caribbean integration. That for George was, something to which he was committed all his life.
A lot of which we can speak. I'd like you to stay right where you are. We need to take a quick break. We'll come back and talk some more about George Lamming, who would have been 95 years old today. And hear some more from Esther Phillips as well, from the work she's created and how he's inspired her. Morning Barbados continues right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're taking a look today as we celebrate the time and the life of the man George Lamming, who passed away on Saturday. Today he would have celebrated his 95th birthday. We're joined by the co-editor of the long-standing literary magazine BIM, Esther Phillips, Barbados' first poet laureate as well. So let's talk a bit about, you said in the latter years, if there's one thing that Barbadians are very often surprised by is that he was not knighted, he was not recognized with some national honor. And one asks the question, why? What can you say about what you know about him to answer that question?
Well, that is a question that, like I said, there's a complexity of the man, yes. But what I do know is that George himself is not born to go after different kinds of honors or titles. He saw these things as almost a kind of contradiction for what he stood for. But that had to do with his own personal thing. He really had a message, as recalled. He's even talked about having the zeal of an evangelist, as he put it. Surprising language for George. But so he never sought it out. He wasn't one to go trying to pull strings here or there to get titles or whatever. I, however, think there is a massive oversight on the part of those who could have done more for George in terms of recognition. I mean, regionally and outside of the region, George is regarded with the highest respect in literary circles and academic circles as well, for sure. I mean, I have requests coming in every now and again from people doing the PhDs and whatnot who want to use his work. And I believe, and I look forward to the time, and I say this very frankly, when his name will be added among those of national heroes of Barbados. I think he has brought enough recognition and has done in publishing his novels, his essays, all the lectures he gave all over the world. Surely he is worthy of every honor that could possibly be bestowed on him.
I agree with you. It's a travesty because we've not been able to document the time and the space of the people who do outstanding work as Barbadians as well. So there are gaps in his story that a lot of people still do not yet are yet able to fill in. So it's good to know that hopefully at some point in time, his story is really told that generations to come can read and know the man. Now, his writings have inspired you in significant ways. You've read one already, which I just love the way your words flow. I honestly, truly do. Can you share with us some other pieces of your work which you believe might have been inspired in some way by his writings and the way his mind churns?
Of course. Oh, most definitely. What I want to read a poem called Exit To, because this is another thing that people are not aware of and could be useful, I think, in putting his biography together. Remember, he lived at Atlantis for a long time. That was his home. So he traveled back and forth, lecturing at various universities all over the world, actually. And then he would go to Atlantis and then go back, and that was pretty much his home. And a pretty shocking and traumatic thing happened to George when, he told me, I have to leave Atlantis and I have to be out in, I don't even know if it was as many as 2 weeks. And for me and for him, I mean, it was quite a memorable thing where just as he had exited Barbados and there were so many exits in his life, here at his own home in Barbados, he was having to leave. And I'll read this part and then I'll go into some more thoughts. But this is called Exit To. And there I am. There I was at Atlantis Hotel, helping him in this whole situation. Exit To. To pack an aged man's life into cardboard boxes, while plaster falls from cracked ceilings, salt-rusted hinges no longer fasten the doors, and a single wood owl calls in the distance, is not an easy thing. That builders have come with unkind haste to gauge the length and height of new walls, while the man still hustling his memories out of corners and floorboards, his allies of long years, this is not right. All morning the blue van comes and goes, fetching more and more boxes as if to say, this is it, all ends here. By evening, the white-haired man sits in the car following behind, while the van makes its final journey back up the hill. But from the bent of his shoulders and the grief in his eyes, he remains at Atlantis still. But I think, though, that there was something very stoic about George. It was difficult for him because here it was a shock for him that this place could be sold practically over his head. He has little time to move. And that is how we came actually to be sharing a home together. And one thing I think, though, and soon after that he went off to Brown and then was back and forth. But I think that having left Atlantis, maybe in a way that launched him more into the society, more into the Barbados that he so loved. Because George was really very much a private person, very, very much a private person. But at the same time, when you got to know him, he was, full of warmth and a great sense of humor. And, but always committed to the idea of freedom. And, one of the things I will say too, I was looking through conversations, one of his essays the other day. He refers to his novel Pleasures of Exile. And Krim, one of his characters, there's one person who's saying to another character, if a man give you your freedom, he owns you for the rest of your life, or words to that effect. And of course, what George is attempting to say there is that there must always be that struggle for us to free ourselves in whatever ways we need to. That, I believe, was part of his attraction to Cuba. And unto Castro and, that whole revolution. And I have something here called Birthday Visit to Cuba, which I can read quickly. I remember a morning he was leaving to go to Cuba. They were celebrating his 90th birthday or 80th. I do not remember which one it was. Vast difference between the two. No, it had to be his 80th. And here's the poem. birthday visit to Cuba. And that day it was very, very rainy. There was pretty bad weather. How the skies spoke on your birthday. The same reverberations I've heard in your voice, only this morning there's an ellipsis in the echo. For these 10 days, you're harvesting memories I cannot share. You are bone gathering. A fist once folded in defiance. The feet that spurned an empire hobbled now among gravestones. A headband red as Rodney's blood bleached by the year's indifference. They affect you as they rightly should. While the young and bright pay tribute to title and tenure, you sit half listening, honing your reluctant peace. You see how the beast may win after all. His subterranean smell invades the city in the half smirk on the cashier's face. The branding of appetites with cell phones and DVD players. The brag of steel and chrome over iron, cracked but enduring, a barter of nation for illusion of capital. When you return, I'll have a meal, a change of clothing, a space for luggage ready for you. But there is not room enough to house the ashes your eyes may speak of. And there, of course, is I think he was beginning to see, I wrote this poem here, but I think he was beginning to see the creeping of capitalism and materialism back into even the greatest attempts we make at creating our own destinies.
About him and his contribution to Barbados and to the world, literally. And there's so much more time I wish I could spend with you, Esther Phillips, as well, because the work you've written is also very worthy of recognition. Remember, the BIM magazine is still available, true?
True, yes. There's one coming out in November, yeah.
Great. And I
online.
Online. So for those of you who want to read more about what's happening in our literary spaces here on the island, BIM magazine is online. Just go look for it very, very soon. And there's a whole lot more. We'll keep touch with you, Esther, as well. As we say goodbye, if there was one thing you wished Barbadians understood about George Lamming, what would you think that is?
I would wish Barbadians to understand that same idea of freedom, sovereignty, and the necessity of retaining your culture and being true to yourself. You know, we know that there are world forces pressing in, but we need to understand who we are. And the other major message for George would be the Caribbean must be integrated. There must be regional integration. We cannot continue without it.
Phillips, Barbados' first poet laureate, for joining us this morning to share your memories and your work as we remember George Lamming, who would have been 95 years old today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Very welcome indeed. Morning Barbados takes a break, and we're back with the news after this.
Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
All right, let's get an update on the news now. Once again, here's Shane Seeley.
Thank you, Pearson. Here's your headline news for this Wednesday, June 8th. A police investigation is underway after a man was reportedly shot and killed last night. The incident took place at Morse Gap, Westbury Road, St. Michael. Lawmen were reportedly responding to reports of gunshots in the area. Upon arrival at the scene around 8:15, they found the body of a man lying on the roadway with what appeared to be gunshot wounds about the body. The victim was pronounced dead at the scene by a medical officer. We are awaiting details on the identity of the deceased. Anyone who can assist with their investigations, that's the police investigation, which is now underway. You're being asked to contact the police emergency number at 211 or the nearest police station. Barbados is once again leaning on Cuba. They're leaning on Cuba to help fill the personnel gaps in the healthcare system. That's why 70 specialists, doctors, nurses, and lab technicians touched down at the Grantley Adams International Airport last evening, where they were greeted by local and Cuban officials. The Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Sonia Brown, says the local healthcare system is in need of these specialized personnel, particularly since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. She says Barbados is therefore eternally grateful to the Cuban government.
Right now we are short of specialized nurses and to some extent doctors, and we welcome today at least the last number was supposed to be about 70 people from Cuba with various specialties. We have 4 doctors, ICU trained, lab specialists 4, and the others comprise nurses with different specialties, pediatrics, NICU, SICU, MICU training. So we're grateful for that. It's needed in Barbados, at least for now, till we can build out our own supply. But for the next few years, probably we will indeed need the help from other sources.
COVID-19 has claimed 2 more Barbadian lives. 2 women, ages 72 and 76, passed away as a result of the virus yesterday. They were both unvaccinated. Meanwhile, a total of 104 people, that's 43 males and 61 females, tested positive for COVID-19 from 393 tests conducted by the Best dos Santos Public Health Laboratory on Monday. The number of people in isolation facilities stood at 44, while 1,371 people were in home isolation. 11 sites across Barbados are set to be transformed under the Community Empowerment and Environmental Partnership Program. The venture is a collaboration between the Global Environment Facility Small Grants Program, that's GEF-SGP, and the United Nations Development Program and the Ministries of Youth and the Environment. It was launched yesterday at Pool Woods in St. John. The UNDP's representative for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean was there and explained how it will work as she encouraged people to submit their proposals in order to benefit.
The 2-dose course will benefit 26,400 children. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony.
It's meant to be an initiative where there will be different projects from all the parishes, and hopefully every parish will have at least one project funded. And not only are we integrating the way we are working, we're also integrating the financing. So the money that will go to the winning projects will come from the Global Environmental Facility and the Small Grants Program, but also, and UNDP, but it will also come from the ministries that will also co-finance.
And the Ministers of Youth and the Environment, Charles Griffith and Adrian Ford, respectively, are supporting the venture. Both spoke of the importance of having the youth and communities on board.
I fully embrace the fact that I'm able to partner with UNDP and the Ministry of Environment as the Minister of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, because this will take up 2 areas of my ministry, the youth and the community empowerment. And that is what we're about. We're here to ensure that government work as hand in hand with those persons who mean well.
I want to thank you from every single senior of my being and the ministry's being for being the advocate and champion of the environment in Barbados. It's without you, we would not have achieved our goals this far. And to be able to bring in the youth, who I must say today, must be the active participant in the whole fight of climate change.
And before we go, just to give you an update in sports, the West Indies doing battle in Multan against Pakistan. They won the toss, Nicholas Pooran and his side, and decided to bat and are currently 6 without loss. At the top are Shea Hope and Kyle Mears, the two Barbadians opening the batting. So far, 6 without loss off 1.3 overs. We're wishing them all the best. 8 without loss, that score is right now in this first one-day international. Of course, we will bring you further updates in our midday sports package in CBC Newsday. But that's our time for headline news. I'm Shane Seeley. It's back to you, Pearson.
Shane, thank you. We'll take that break right here. When we come back, we're talking HR with HERMAB, looking at personnel administration versus HR management. What's the difference? We'll share with you after this break.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We are 9 minutes after 7 o'clock now. Let's turn our attention to the Human Resource Management Association of Barbados and our ongoing relationship with them. We're happy to be joined this morning. As I told you, we want to look at personnel administration versus human resource management. Happy to be joined by a senior HR generalist and a former president of HERMAB herself in Arlene Bushell. With her is Tiffany Jones, who's a senior HR practitioner and a member of HERMAB. Ladies, good morning.
Good morning, Pearson.
Well, we all said it almost in tandem. I like that. You've been trained well. Let's talk a little bit about the work as HR practitioners. And I know there is a difference between personnel administration and HR management. I'll start with that simple question, as most people would ask, what's the difference?
Well, Pearson, the terms, and those terms are used in today. People talk about personnel management or personnel administration and human resource management in the same sentence, but there is a difference. Really and truly, the discipline started with personnel management or personnel administration in the earlier days. In terms of personnel administration, it came about from the situation where employees, having worked especially in industrial situations, started to become aware of their rights, and they were concerned about their working conditions and the way they were treated to a large extent. And that's where personnel management came in. So initially, it would have dealt with such issues as recruitment, workplace conditions, wages and salaries. And then as time went on, the focus changed because personnel management really focused on the organization's objectives and its goals, and in achieving those goals along with people helping to achieve those goals. The difference being human resource management then encompasses a lot of what you would find in personnel management. There are lots of similarities, because I spoke earlier about recruitment and selection, wages or compensation, industrial relations. So changed the focus in that it sought to bring about, or it seeks to bring about, a balance between the needs of the organization, and it takes into consideration the individual employee. So that is one of the major differences between personnel management and human resource management. The
Whenever
focus.
whenever I thought of personnel administration, I've always felt that people were seen as units of production, and that was it. You are just a thing who came to the office to deliver a service, and you go. In human resource management, I see it as, you're looking at the total person, how they feel, not just what they can do, and what can you do as an organization to ensure you get the most out of the individual as well. So I'm not sure if in my basic way I've hit the definition, but that's my point of view.
You have.
All
The
right,
focus
good.
is different.
Glad to hear that. Now, there are many, as a consequence of this even subtle as it can be, there are many things that affect the employee and also the employer when we start to look at human resource management today, especially with a workforce today that says, you know what, I have rights. Whereas before, whatever rights you had, but now I have rights. So from your perspective, Tiffany, what can you say about how we bridge between the human resource and the employer?
Great question, Pearson. One of the things we have to look at is how we communicate with our employees. So bridging that gap starts with communication, understanding the needs of the employees and how the company can meet those needs. In addition to that, we also need to ensure that employees understand the vision of the company. What are we trying to achieve as a brand? What do we want out there attached to our name? What are our performance goals? What's our vision? Once we have these things out in the open and these are understood, then employees can start to bite into the vision of the company and feel a part of that company. And in addition to that, just following on to what Arlene mentioned as it relates to human resources, one of the big elements of that is development and developing staff. And that is something that the workforce is especially passionate about. And human resources consistently, once done right, leads and lends to that function of the HR function in the company. So being able to communicate, understand the needs, making sure that everyone buys into the company's vision is a great start.
That's such a shift away from what used to happen under personnel administration, where we have an objective to meet the objective or else, or you can leave the job. Now you're saying it will take a little bit more, but Arlie, you're laughing. But that's what it was. You either do it and you leave, or you do it and you stay. And so now today we're saying it's vastly different because legislation has also changed. So how do we begin to have, as HR practitioners, the understanding of what that legislation is, and so how we treat to those that we work with and employ?
Well, legislation plays a major role because it deals in large measure with bringing structure and order to the employment relationship. So it's a guide, and it is a situation where it is the law, so you're required to follow. One example of a piece of legislation which has brought about major changes in the employment relationship is what we have here in Barbados, the Employment Rights Act. And that for particular rights. So as I said, it brings about structure and order to the employment relationship. And it has made a difference because, okay, you spoke earlier about situation under personal management where the employer will probably say, well, you do the job or you go. In the current situation under the employment rights legislation, the employee has a right not to be unfairly dismissed. And that is a major right under that legislation. So it means that, as Tiffany said earlier, the focus is different and you're now looking beyond just what the organization wants to achieve. You're looking at the employees' interests, their development, and so on as well.
And a lot of times in that relationship, Tiffany, the employee feels as if everything has become so mechanical. Now there are metrics, there are measurements, there are appraisals, there are all sorts of things. It feels almost as if it's been mechanized. What do you say about that, and how critical it is as HR practitioners that one understands that and is able to translate that message to the employee?
That is an interesting question because human resources is always tasked with having to strike that balance between people and the business, the needs of both entities. And that can be a very delicate dance, but very, very necessary. And it's always about, again, everybody buying in. So while we are looking at the needs and the wellness of the staff members, we also exist in the business to contribute to the productivity and the profits of the company. But again, we're striking that balance is not just focusing on what the company needs, but what the staff needs, and starting to meet those needs, so that the human resources function isn't just seen as the police of the organization, Pearson, because we're not just talking about meet those targets and that's it. What do you need from the company? How can we help you? How can we develop you as a staff member? Balancing those two needs is very critical if the HR department is supposed to function effectively. And that is one of the major differences as well with the personnel function, in that it only speaks to the basic needs of the staff member. Whereas with human resources, we look at the employee as a whole person and as an individual in the company.
I mean, it's a silly question, I think, now. Does it vary depending on the sector, or are all sectors generally in HR management operating with those basic tenets of what HR is about?
Well, what I would say is that it sometimes varies. I don't want to say by sector, but based on the value that the company places on the HR function. And that sometimes is the problem that we may face. A company that understands the value and the merit of having a well-functioning and a well-oiled HR department will get the benefits. And so it shouldn't vary, but unfortunately sometimes it does. But that's where HERMAB and what we're doing today comes in, where we're providing advocacy and we're shedding a light for those persons who may only see the function as personnel management.
HR today is challenged by a whole host of things. The pandemic caused a shift in how we do business, and so HR had to adjust to what HR does as well. And then there are the definitions around what we do as well. Job descriptions are changing, job terms are changing, a whole host of things. It's almost swirling for the employee. How do you as HR managers keep abreast so that you keep in step with what's changing and constantly happening?
Well, Pearson, the world has changed. We are now very much into the age of technology. So that is one way that HR managers, not only in Barbados, but world, can keep abreast of trends and the changes and what is happening and what's likely to happen. So we keep abreast, and then what we need to be able to do is to be able to communicate with our staff how those changes are coming and what they mean and the impact that it will have and how the organization will be managing those changes. But there have been several changes. You spoke about the pandemic, and for instance, here in Barbados, we were all at the end of March 2020, I think it was March 28th, the country was going into lockdown. The first time that we would have had that type of situation, and you had to adapt very quickly in order to be able to have continuity as it relates to your businesses, to keep employees, what should I say, engaged, and because there were many concerns, there was lots of anxiety, there were lots of unknowns. Some organizations were able to adapt more quickly than others. Some organizations, unfortunately, did not survive the pandemic. And the ones that did survive were the ones who were able to adapt very quickly. We had to go into in large measure, we had to go into remote work. You had to work from home. And that meant you were not in the office, you were not all in the same place. Technology had to come into play because in order to maintain contact, we had to go very much into technology, into our computers. That is when Zoom came very much to the forefront. It's still very much in the forefront.
Yes.
And the other programs as well, Microsoft Teams and all the other things. And then some organizations used in terms of telephones because you were away from the office, but in order to keep contact, for instance, Jabber is a piece of software that organizations use. I can answer my telephone from at home, but I'm answering on behalf of the organization.
Yes.
I can deal with consumers or customers and continue to contact business. So yes, there are lots and it is a very dynamic kind of environment, and it means that you have to be ready. You have to be ready to adapt very quickly.
Yeah, you HR practitioners have to be adaptable as well to ever changing. So Tiffany, I want to ask this question. I mean, as employees, we know we turn to HR for guidance, everything. So who does HR turn to for guidance?
Well, Pearson, we have a network of HR professionals and we tap into each other. And the beauty about HerMap is that it can definitely fill that void. So you have, again, this community of persons who understand from experience what we go through on a daily basis, why we do what we do and what we do. And that helps in a major way. And then there are also other avenues that we can use as well. But you know, tapping into each other and leaning on each other has definitely been a great way of receiving support.
And I'm so glad you said that, because you're more than personnel, you're also people. And so HR, we must be able to respect our HR officers as well, folks. I'm speaking to the employee now, because oftentimes we beat them up, we say some of the worst things about them because we didn't get the satisfaction we wanted. But they're just people too who operate within the same structures that we have to operate, with the same legislations that we all have to operate, and so they're there to guide and to give the best advice. And so I can imagine the pressure HR managers and human resource people are under when you are bombarded by the thousands of employees. You know, this is a conversation that has to continue as we look more and more about how our human resources are managed on the island for productivity and for the betterment of the island as well. So folks, if you want to be a member of the HRMAB, 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 the Human Resources Management Association of Barbados, membership is easy, right, Arlene?
Yes, it is.
Good.
Yes, it is. You can apply online.
Right.
And you can fill out your membership form. There are several categories of membership, from student membership, we have right up to professional membership.
Fantastic.
So it's easy. And there's the website. You can go to the website. There's lots of information on the website in terms of how to join and what the association does and what we are all about.
So that's what they're all about. That and a whole lot more, and their benefits to the organization as well. As Tiffany said, you lean on each other, you learn from each other's experience, and you can now better develop the people who you are responsible for. Thank you, Arlene Bushell and Tiffany Jones of HerMap for joining us this morning in our Talking HR with HerMap. We are so happy to have you. Thank you so very much. All the best.
Thank you, Pearson.
Thanks, Pearson.
You're very welcome. Morning Barbados continues right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's 25 minutes after 7 o'clock now. It is World Heritage Month. It is indeed our Heritage Month here in Barbados. We're looking at the theme Heritage, the next 50 years. We're happy to be joined this morning by Senior Cultural Officer and Focal Point. We're talking Sharon Johnson. With her is Jaslyn Hall, who is a Consultant Assistant Coordinator of Events. Good morning, both of you ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Sharon, let's start with you. Heritage Month, the theme and how are we celebrating this month?
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, Pearson, and to all Barbados. Yes, it is Heritage Month, once again, June, where everything heritage comes to the fore. This year, we embodied the theme set out by UNESCO under their 50th anniversary celebration of the 1972 convention. The convention celebrates 50 years, and UNESCO has asked Barbados, to all countries with World Heritage sites basically, to embrace the theme Heritage the next 50 years, World Heritage the next 50 years. we took it down a notch and realized, not all heritage is world heritage. We also need to acknowledge the heritage within communities. So we decided on heritage the next 50 years, which looks at what are we going to do with the heritage that we have? How are we going to protect it, preserve it for future generations, use it to develop sustainable goods and services? So that is why we chose the team.
But the question is, how do we recognize what is heritage? Is it the picture behind you where we see the Chattel House and we see those? Is that all that heritage is? Because time has evolved. So how do we recognize what is today and recognize that that needs to be preserved?
First, I'd like to say heritage is what has been handed down to us by our forefathers. And it embodies, we talk about the tangible and the intangible heritage. And the tangible heritage speaks to things like chattel houses, as we see behind, built heritage, plantation houses, monuments, statues, those kinds of things fit into the context of built heritage. Then you also have natural heritage, like for our gullies, aquifers, cave systems, flora and fauna. Then you have the intangible, which looks at the cultural practices, cooking cuckoo. We cooked soup just last Sunday.
Yes.
How you bake sweet bread, cook the history of pudding and sauce, cultural practices such as the tukban and spoon music. All those things embody heritage. Yes.
But there are the customs of today that have evolved over time, that have been created in this now space that also need preservation. So but who spots it? Who is the one who decides, you know what, this is what's happening, there seems to be a movement here, we need to, who does that?
I think the onus is on all of us to protect what we have and to be proud of what we have. I'm currently setting up an exhibition in our gallery at Sky Mall and of artifacts. And it's interesting that so many of the staff came and they said, oh, but I had one of these, my grandfather had one of these, but I don't know where it is, and I can't find it. So it is not only at the governmental level. Government has to set the policy and the infrastructural framework to encourage, whether it is through stipends, waivers, awards, acknowledgement, public education, to set the framework there. But it is up to all of us to pass on what we have, what been given to us, to our children and grandchildren.
You're quite right. That oral history is going to be critical, so the child or the person understands the value in this particular artifact. Somebody might want to describe it as in time, and what it was, what the purpose it served then, and why it ought to be preserved now. So Jasmine, here you are, you're part of that. You're coordinating a whole host of these kinds of things as well, where you're saying, come, look and see. So what role are you playing?
Well, firstly, I just like to say, I just feel that I lived with heritage for such a long time. I was lucky enough to have a centenarian as an uncle.
Wow.
One of Barbadian centenarians, and he died at 102. So as Sharon says, it's really about living heritage. It's the stories he told me, all the artifacts that he had in his house. So I've just been really fortunate. But what we've done with the calendar, and it's a month-long calendar, is that we've really tried to look at that tangible and intangible. And there you go, there's the calendar. There are lots of things on there that you can come and see and do and take part in. We had a fantastic cook along with Dane Chef Sadler last week. Sorry you missed it. But coming up this week, there's so many other amazing things that you can take part in. One of the things that I'd like to point out, because the heritage, we have to also look at young people and how they are going to carry the heritage through. And one of the things I'd like to draw your attention to is on Saturday the 11th, we start something called the 24-hour Heritage Art Challenge, where we invite young people between the ages of 15 and 21 to tune in on 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. We'll put up 3 items of heritage, and they have 24 hours, only 24 hours, Pearson, in which to come up with a creative art piece, and they post it online, and then we judge it, and there's an amazing prize and lots of prizes that you can win. So I'd really like to point that one out. We've also got a tour of the Rock Hall Freedom Village, and Sharon, perhaps you'd like to speak to that.
Yes, certainly. Quite a lot has been happening at Rock Hall Freedom Park, which was launched a couple of years ago. And we've put in quite a lot of infrastructure. It is going to be a multi-use facility, and to be used as a resource space for the community first and foremost. Researchers, children are already using it, using the ramp. There's a wonderful ramp. People are already playing cricket there, but it's a very peaceful place. But we need to now get down to the nitty-gritty of why this village was established, the intrigue behind the establishment of this first free village established after emancipation that spurred the development of other free villages across Barbados, and what it meant for the economic and social enfranchisement of the former enslaved people. So that tour will take persons through the village of Rock Hall, where you can see the original plots. Imagine as a freed person, and you are now allowed to do something that other Black people would not have been able to do. Own land, and you are able to get that land. But how did the people get that money to purchase that land? So that's behind the story that we will tell you at Rock Hall. We're inviting people to come along. It starts at 4, and we would encourage you to call our offices to register if you want to go, so we'll be able to identify, know how many numbers we're dealing with, and we're also within a COVID environment as well. So you can call our offices at 535-5858 or 44 535-5858 or 44 to register for that tour.
You know we love a tour.
And
so we're coming to the tour. Just a minute, let me just remind people of the numbers to call. 535-5858 or 535-5844.
Yes.
Good, got it. Now you're saying, Jaslyn?
I was just saying that also the Barbados National Trust has a number of open days, and we'd really love people to support those. Coming up on Saturday, the 11th, there's an open day at the Gun Hill Signal Station, and if you've not been up to St. George and been to that site, then it's well worth a visit, and it's a site for the whole family. So you can have a picnic up there, learn about the history of Gun Hill Signal Station. It's really fantastic. And for those gardeners, people who love gardens, a visit to the Andromeda Botanic Gardens is well worth a day out. And that's on Sunday the 12th. I'm going up there because they've just started a new ethno-botanical garden space. Now, this is looking at heritage plants. And it's a self-guided tour. You just take your phone, download the tour, and just walk around the gardens. It's just wonderful. They've got over 100 trees there, species of trees, and they've got over 500 plants, and it really is a super visit. Go up to St. Joseph and really enjoy that time. You'll see me there. I'll be there.
This is really it's a wide calendar of events, folks. It's free. Some are online, some are in person, but you need to register early and get in. Some are free, if not most, and you can really come and engage with our diversity, our built history and oral history as well, because I'm sure the stories will continue to be told. But you need to register by calling 535-5858 or 535-5844. And you need to call today. If we wanted to see this calendar again, so we can plan our time, where can we go see it?
Yeah, Pearson, you can visit our Facebook page, Division of Culture. On Facebook, and it will also be available on our IG page, Instagram page as well. Or you can call our numbers again if you want. If anybody wants me to email it to them, that is no problem. Could also take my government email address, which is Sharon, SHERON Johnson at barbados.gov.bb.
All right. So you see, many ways to engage. And now we know, folks, the word heritage, we need not be afraid of. It seems strange, but it's actually quite involved. It's every day that's happening around us. And so as we preserve every day, we also preserve our history and we get to engage with our history as well. This is fantastic. I want to commend it to everyone. Please do register. Please do go and engage. There are going to be some webinars, a whole host of things. But go to the Facebook page, the Division of Culture, on Facebook or on Instagram, or call those numbers or email sharon.johnson@barbados.gov.bb. That's SHERON, not the way we always spell it, SHERON. And you can get more information there as well. Thank you, ladies. I really hope Barbadians come out in their full numbers because we love a tour. We love to see our history, so we want to engage with it as well. And I wish you only the very best with our Heritage Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Pearson.
You're very welcome.
To see you.
You're very welcome. Thank you too. Sharon Johnson and Jaslyn Hall, who have been talking to us a little bit about what's on the calendar of events for this month of June, Heritage Month. A break, and we're back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's 20 minutes now to go to 8 o'clock. Let's check in with our St. Michael Parish Independence Committee, shall we? Because they're launching something really big that we need to know about. Darren Burke is the project chair. With him is Alicia Ford, the public relations officer. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Well, thank you so much for coming through this morning. SAFE is the project. What's SAFE? It's an acronym. What does it represent? And tell us a little bit more about the project.
Okay, so we are Project SAFE this year.
Oh.
Go ahead, Darren.
Right, no problem. In addition to what the young people have said, that it's safe, it actually means sustainable, sustaining all families through education and entrepreneurship. That's what it actually means. St. Michael SAFE, sustaining all families through education and entrepreneurship. We realize, especially through the COVID times, that a lot of people would have lost jobs. There was a lot of economic dislocation. And we wanted our project to be sustainable, whereby we have persons training in vital life skills. So we don't believe in just giving a man a fish to eat, it's only lasts for one day, but if you could teach a man to fish, then he's able to feed and sustain himself for a lifetime. So this project here, we are looking at a long-term benefits to the community, right? Where we are going to showcase educational courses for families to undertake, and also to develop a showcase of all the entrepreneurs in the St. Michael area where young people could learn skills from and be able to start to generate vital economic activity within the communities and within our families.
You're launching this on Sunday coming, and I know I don't want to. We want to preview. We don't give them all the details because they need to really pay attention at Abundant Life Assembly at 8 on Sunday morning to get to know a whole lot more. But Alicia, break it down for me, because here it is. You're having this range of sessions and seminars and so forth that you want a big old St. Michael. I mean, you have thousands of people living there. So how are you going to make it such that people all across St. Michael can access all of this?
Well, we have Pearson planned some live interactive sessions coming up soon. We know that we're in the age of digital social media. Everybody is online, connected, and always on their phone. So we want to make it easily accessible for you to speak to us, to get in contact with us, and to talk to us. So we have coming up in a couple of weeks, we want to do some digital sessions online where we, talk to our ambassadors live so that they can tell persons about their project, tell persons about the good things that are going to be happening in St. Michael. As you rightly said, we have so many areas within St. Michael, and by foot, it might not be able for us to, travel and traverse all of these communities. But I know that once we get the word out and we're on social media, you can definitely find us and we'll be able to contact you and talk to you, and you talk to us as well. Because like Darren said, we want that this project is not only happening throughout the year that the ambassadors have their tenure, but we want it to be sustainable. And when we look at what's going on in the wider world internationally, you have the SDG 2030 goals as well, those sustainable development goals. And when we look at them, we want our persons within Barbados and obviously within the parish of St. Michael to be sustainable as well. We want them to have that good health and well-being. We want them to have that decent work and economic growth. And of course, our main thing is to have sustainable communities.
Indeed. So Darren, who are some of the agencies and people who will be helping you to really make this project a reality so that people benefit?
Well, we looking at agriculture, so we are looking at the NCC, we are looking at the botanical gardens because we are doing a lot of tree planting. Plus we are going into chicken rearing, rain cows, rain sheep. So and then there are a whole host of other entrepreneurs that we are going to be tapping into, where we can hopefully, the Barbados Vocational Training Program is also one of them, because we want to be able to train our young people in life skills so that they will be able, as Alicia alluded to earlier, have sustainable work. They're able to develop critical life skills.
Right.
So there's going to be a broad range of agencies that are already on and that we are in the process of communicating to, so that they'll be able to showcase their talents and be able also to give courses to the youth and to families so that they'll be able to sustain themselves throughout this period.
I mean, more to come because the launch... Yeah, more to come. The launch is on Sunday at Abundant Life. You want as many as possible who could fit,
as many as possible,
yet to be assembled at the Abundant Life Assembly on Lower Bank Hall. From 8 o'clock in the morning. If you can't, you just join virtually. Meet your parish ambassadors as well, and engage with this sustainable project, SAFE. Sustaining all families through entrepreneurship and education. But then there's this one that we have on our screen now, which is the talent showcase that's coming up. And they're looking for, not me, because they don't live in St. Michael, but they're looking for you who live in St. Michael. Who's going to talk to me a little bit about this? Talk to me, Alicia, about this and the deadline.
So the deadline is June 30th. Obviously, we're looking for persons to come. We're going to have a talent show, but we want persons to come out. Like you said, Barbados is big, and St. Michael, I would say, is the biggest. Okay? So we want to make sure that you come out. Any talent that you have, poetry, song, mime, drama, and any unique talent that we may not have discovered as yet, something that could definitely put you on the map, we want you to come out. We want you to make sure that you call myself at 242-5604 or our talent coordinator, Gina, at 286-7531. You have until June 30th, so you still have a little bit of time. We've been having some persons coming in steadily, and I can say that the talent is looking amazing already. For those of you who've been sitting down on your talent for the last 2 years, come out and join us, come out and entertain, and you may never know where this talent may take you.
Well said, well put indeed. You have until the end of the month, St. Michael people, to showcase your talent by just submitting your registration. Call my girl Lisa here on 242-5604, or you can call Gina on 286-7531. Where can we find these posters? Go ahead.
Remember, thank you, that you can find us on Instagram at St. Michael PIC. You can email us at st.michaelpic246@gmail.com. And you can obviously go on Facebook and find us as well at St. Michael Parish Ambassadors and Attendants. So we are reachable. You can find us. Once you connect, we will be there to answer any queries or any calls.
See, simple Simon made the pieman. There you go. Online is where you can find them indeed. But all the best with the launch on Sunday, and all the best with all of the activities all month long. And I hope that many people from St. Michael do register to be a part of that big talent showcase. I can't wait to see what comes out of it as well. Darren Burke and Alicia Ford of the St. Michael Parish Independence Committee, thank you for joining us. And I hope that everybody gets to meet your parish ambassadors, give them the fullest support, and let's rally behind the Parish Independence Committee of St. Michael. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Pearson. Wear your white
Thank you
on
very
Sunday.
much, Pearson.
Wear my white when?
Wear your white on Sunday. That's our color. Wear your white on Sunday.
And if I don't, just kidding you. Don't answer me. Thank you very much for joining us. All right?
Have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you
All right.
too.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You're very welcome. Morning Barbados continues right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
It's World Oceans Day today, June the 8th. It's under the theme Revitalization, Collective Action for the Ocean. Joining us today as we look at how are they marking today as World Oceans Day is Nicholas Simpson, who is head of the Blue Economy Accelerator Lab of the UNDP Barbados and Eastern Caribbean. Nicola, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson, and happy World Oceans Day to everyone. And thank you for having me to share a little bit more about our connection to the ocean and how we're celebrating today.
Indeed, I mean, it's our biggest space around us. We're just 166 square miles, but there are vast spaces out there called the blue economy. Let's talk a little bit about as an island, our respect for the ocean and why we should pay greater attention to that space.
Sure, Pearson. As you said, it's a vast space with so much opportunity. In Barbados specifically, our ocean space is over 400 times larger than our land space. And we are so connected to our ocean. It covers, 70% of the Earth's surface. It produces over half of the oxygen that we breathe. And as a small island developing state, we rely on our ocean for fish, for livelihoods, for tourism, for transport, for renewable energy. So there are so many importances of the ocean and the individuals that work within the ocean space, or what we are now calling the blue economy.
So there has to be some sort of shift in the way we view this vast space around us. Some are scared of it, hand up in the air, because it's such a deep body of water out there. But then there's some who treat it with such scant respect, and we want to dump things into it. Let's talk about that required change in behavior so that we have a greater appreciation of it.
Yes, Pearson, I think, you've hit the nail on the head. Many people interact with the ocean in different ways. Some love, respect, protect, some are afraid of it. But I think once we understand and become more aware of how connected we are to the ocean, and that it literally is providing the air that we breathe right now, maybe we then will respect it a bit more and be more willing to protect it. It nourishes us, it sustains us. And under the theme this year, we really are inviting everyone to come together to take action to protect our ocean. It also absorbs carbon dioxide, which is linked to regulating the climate. And as many of us are aware, our small island is facing a multitude of threats, and the climate crisis is one of those. So although today is a day to celebrate our ocean and all that it gives us, it's also, I think, on the flip side, a day to raise the alarm and make people more aware that, unfortunately, if we don't protect our ocean, there may not be much left to celebrate. And that will have huge impacts for us here in the Caribbean, and more specifically in Barbados.
Some watch it and this body of water and figure, well, what can I do to protect it? It's bigger and stronger than I. So what do we need to be able to do as a people called Barbadians today to at least protect the ocean space around us?
I think if you want to make one small change today, look at your day, look at your daily lifestyle. So look at what you've already done this morning. Did you brush your teeth? Could you turn off the water when you're brushing your teeth? Did you use a plastic bottle? Could you maybe switch to a reusable bottle? Do you have a kitchen garden? Do you maybe use pesticides in that garden? Can you try using more natural methods? I think look at things that we do every day. How did you get to work? And I think these small actions add up to make big actions. And if each of us on the individual level can change something, this adds up to community level, to national level, and then hopefully we can put pressure on global leaders, because it's really a call to them to make the changes needed to protect our ocean as well.
I'd like you to reinforce some of the reasons why we should care. You talked about it being absorbing carbon dioxide, providing the oxygen we breathe, and a whole host. Reinforce that for us again so that we get it, if you don't mind.
Of course. So literally, as you're breathing right now, even if you're not thinking about it, every 2 breaths that you take are produced by the ocean. So just maybe stop and think of that. And then, in addition to that, the ocean absorbs 50 times more carbon dioxide than the atmosphere. And some of us may be aware that there is a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and this is leading to impacts of climate change. So the ocean actually helps to regulate climate change. So I think just knowing that this oxygen that you're breathing right now, if that's the only thing that you take away from this segment this morning, thank the ocean for giving you breath.
That is one of the most natural spaces in the ozone to absorb the ozone into our bodies as well. Now, there's something you're doing today. Can we talk a little bit about the activity today to mark Oceans Day and who and where it will be?
Sure. So I'm actually at Bagnall's Point Gallery at Pelican Village right now, and we are having an event here today. So the United Nations Development Programme, in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment and National Beautification, Green and Blue Economy, Export Barbados, and partners such as Blue Shell Productions are hosting an event, starting off with a closed session this morning, a learning training workshop with our fisher folk, who are huge ocean champions that we really believe need to be celebrated and valued for the work that they do. And then this afternoon, we are having a series of activities. There will be a live painting, a book reading, poetry, musical performance, a sustainable seafood tasting. So there are a lot of activities that we're trying to bring as many people together into the space to take collective action for our ocean.
So it's all at Bagnall's Point, and that's at Pelican.
Yes, correct. Pelican Village, Bagnall's Point Gallery. And as you have up there on the screen, we're also doing a Blue Talk, which will feature innovators talking about rum, sargassum, underwater robots. So lots of things going on if people are interested in joining today.
So it's a really good reason, it's a good opportunity. It's today. You get to learn a whole lot more, starting around 10, I think it is this morning, until about 4:30. And you can pop in and pop out. You can head over for lunch. That's free seafood testing, sustainable indeed. And it's a great opportunity for you to engage more with those who are around the study of the ocean, the protection of the ocean, and how we as individuals can begin to adjust our behaviors as we collectively take action to protect and revitalize our ocean. Bagnall's Point Gallery, Pelican Village, from 1:30 this afternoon till 4:30. You can be a part of it as well as part of World Oceans Day today. It sounds like a really nice day it will be indeed. There's performances, there's poetry reading, spoken word. I see that Makita Corbin will be there as well, some of the speakers who we'll be highlighting.
Yes, correct. So during our Blue Talk, which are going to be a short 5-minute chats, we're going to have Makita Corbin, who is from the University of the West Indies. We're going to have Antonio Hollingsworth, who is working to collect marine data using an underwater robot. We're also going to have Dr. Legina Henry, who's doing work on rum and sargassum. So lots of things going on. And, you know, we're celebrating the ocean today, but really every day, but hoping to use today to spread more awareness on how we can all play our part to become more connected to the ocean, and to hopefully, once we become more connected, to respect and protect the very ocean that sustains and nourishes us.
Absolutely. I just want to encourage parents to bring the children along as well. Let them come engage as well. It's so critical that we start at that age, the infancy, bring them through. Nicola Simpson, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I wish you only very much the success for today, World Oceans Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pearson. Have a great day.
And you,
Bye.
thank you. You're welcome. A quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming right back.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Well, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We do look forward to spending the time again with you tomorrow morning. Until then, do take care of yourselves. See you then. Bye-bye.